What is up, people? We are back with the last installment to our artificial intelligence series. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nomal.
I'm Ian.
Special guest, back again. This guy has more videos than all of our other guests combined. So he's not even a special guest. He's just here.
Yeah.
So
That sounds pretty special to me.
that's pretty special. That is pretty special. It's only because you have a master's degree. Now,
Well, not quite yet. Give me another year and I'll have it. But
okay, as long as
halfway-
you're in a
halfway
master's
through.
program. Basically, this last video, we've done 2 videos on artificial intelligence. We talked about an introduction to it, how really breathtaking this technology is, how it is affecting us now, and how we see it affecting us in the immediate future. And now we're going to talk about the end of the world. When AI is going to come over, there's going to be robots at your front door, and
When iRobot's not actually a movie, but
Yeah.
reality.
and you're not Will Smith. So,
You're not Will Smith. You're gonna get murked.
this is the idea for this video. So I want to start it because I think that there's like a we talked about video when we had this conversation the other night. We talked about video games because video games are our kind of painted depiction on how AI can be, how it should be, because it's an amazing thing, and through media we can portray what we want things to be. And 2 different examples: Cortana in Halo,
Right.
Ultron in the Avengers.
Okay.
Cortana, the ultimate assistant, who does everything the physical human cannot do. Ultron, the bot who decides that humans need to be... the bot given the goal to make the world as good as possible, and he says, well, then just get rid of the humans. Like,
That's what we were saying before. You got to give it some limitations.
yeah, he says even God did it in the Bible. He was like, oh my goodness, just get rid of these guys. So where's our middle line? What's the down the middle on Cortana versus Ultron?
Well, Cortana's, ideally we have no...
And in Halo
Ultron,
5,
like-
Cortana does go evil also. So. We're talking Halo 3 Cortana.
Yeah, we're talking the good ones.
Well, she was kind of crazy in Halo 3. She was crazy. Go ahead.
The old Halos were always better anyway.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
So was the old ones.
Did you play Halo?
Yeah.
I never owned Halo, but I did play Halo.
Damn.
What's that blade that just...
The
the energy sword?
I love using that.
Oh, yeah.
Damn,
That was so...
so
it was
you were a
so
dickhead.
I only played like a few...
We don't like energy swords.
Cool.
So what's that down the middle between evil AI as the ultimate assistant?
Well, I mean, ideally, we don't want any sort of evil AI.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
Is it possible to like an Ultron
An
type
Ultron
thing?
type of thing, yeah.
That
That's also
on
assuming-
that scale, no. On
Okay.
that scale, that's purely science fiction. But having an AI go wrong, like yes, that the negative consequences, right? Ultron was like, okay, it wasn't programmed with the you can't kill all the humans, right? Like I mentioned before, like a financial system, if it doesn't have the caveat that you can't just manipulate the market or just like crash something in order to bring something else up, then it will do that, and the net profit will be there, but at what cost? Same thing like you mentioned with Amazon. They had to not hire women because they didn't program their AI correctly, right? That's a negative consequence.
We didn't put that into the affirmative action video. We didn't put that into the affirmative action. The AI just comes in and just says, yeah, affirmative action is great, but no women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't really help.
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
not be
I mean-
great for that.
right. Yeah. There's some obvious
But,
downsides.
I mean, unless you put those limitations, though, right?
Yeah.
You're right, and some limitations are more difficult to implement. There was I believe it was Microsoft that created like kind of a chat bot type of assistant, and they put it on Twitter, and you could tweet at this chat bot thing, and you could tweet it questions and answers, and you could just talk to it. It was meant to kind of emulate a person, somebody you could talk to. What happened was they realized that if this chatbot kind of learned to emulate the speech of who it was talking to. You use slang at it, it would use some slang back at you. So it was immediately used. Somebody took it and just started tweeting racist words at it, and it learned that, and it was it doesn't know that it wasn't programmed correctly to know, hey, you can't use these words, right? So then it just started firing them off. Like it was instead it replaced bro with
Every profane term
you could
not
think
allowed
of,
to say.
Wow.
right? So, and they immediately took it down. They were like, "Oh shit, sorry, we didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that."
Yeah.
But at that point, damage is done. You've already created a racist chatbot. So
Right.
that's talk about the Ultron. That's the Ultron. It's very difficult when you have AI, because the point of AI is it learns. It isn't just programmed to do something immediately, right? You said the difference between computer science and AI. It's not just programmed to do something. It's not programmed with like here's every possible thing you can see and here's every possible thing you can do, because that's just ridiculous. Not enough memory in the world to store that. It learns, right? It learns how to figure something out. It hasn't exactly seen this sentence, but it learns how to kind of respond to it. But when you feed it faulty information, you feed it bad data, and this is a big problem with AI. When you have biased data, right? Then you end up with problems like that. So we're going back to Amazon's model that excluded women. Most of the people Amazon hires, right, and for the software engineer jobs are male, right? You can just look at the employment numbers; it's skewed, and because of that, the data that they use to create a model to hire the people, right? Because they want to hire people that are like the people they've already hired, right? They're like, we've hired some good people. We want people like that.
It's working.
They've already hired people that are mostly male, so it's skewed. So then the model they create is using this skewed data. So it's using the skewed data, and it hires more males and females. It's like, okay, we hire more males and females, so this is superior, the superior gender. We will hire now just males, right?
And that is Ultron in the modern age.
Exactly, right? And that's the problem with when you have this biased, faulty data. And you can see this in many different applications.
No.
So I just want to touch up on the whole premise of AI is more so like the learning aspect, right?
Correct.
So do you think that AI will eventually learn to have like emotions and like social cues? Like I get you would need an insane amount of data points, of course, and also the environment for the AI to learn those type of emotions and social cues. But eventually, if we are able to implement that data points into the AI, would it be able to have or emulate those emotions?
Sure. It can emulate. It can emulate anything, right?
Okay.
It will. So the AI learns from the data it's given. If you give it data with like emotion, so let's say you're if you give it a bunch of books, novels to read, I say read loosely, right? It's not, you feed it all this novel data, and let's say you pick an author that's very emotional. I mean, I don't really read anymore, but imagine there's one. It'll spit out a text that's very emotional. If you give it a bunch of Wikipedia articles, it'll spit out Wikipedia article like text where it's very object, here's some facts, here's some stuff.
Stacey Abrams, who's the senator from Georgia, she has a sex book. So if you feed her that,
it will be very profane. Yes,
that's
it good. Will anything you give it, it will learn how to emulate that kind of style and spit it out
and know when to spit it out as well.
What do you mean know when?
So so for example, if there's an unfortunate event happening, it would know how to respond to that unfortunate event. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So what it would do now
with sadness or grief, that type of thing?
Correct. If the training data it was fed was correct. If you feed it faulty data, it doesn't learn the emotion. It just learns that that this is how people respond.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So people respond in a certain way. It doesn't realize that it's comforting, right? Mm-hmm. If it's I just broke my leg. The typical response is
pain.
Oh, sorry, that sucks, feel bad for you, whatever. Right? If the typical response was, haha, sucks for you, the AI will respond with that. Right?
Yes.
It depends, if I talk to you guys, that's what you guys can say, right?
Damn, come on. We gotta fight. Come on.
It's like, bro, what you mean? You got two of them?
Just walk it off.
Yeah, you got two legs, you're fine.
Yeah.
So the AI in that sense,
AI is kind of messed up.
The AI is gonna, if it was just using data like that, the AI would respond in a similar fashion. That's what happened with the Microsoft thing. It was meant to be a friendly sort of AI. So to do that, it was like, okay, learn the people you're talking to, learn how they talk, learn their slang, respond to them in a similar way. That build that kind of bond. Right? It's not learning emotion, but it's learning how to fake it in a very convincing way. But that obviously leaves room for manipulation.
I think that my thing is, and I want to know what you think about this, is you have the goal, right, that AI is programmed to achieve, and you have the restrictions. Mm-hmm. So the first priority is achieving the goal, second priority is to adhere to the restrictions. What if achieving the goal would be easier if a restriction was taken away? Can the AI eventually get to that point where it says, if I take away this restriction, I can reach the goal so much easier? Because that's kind of like the Ultron effect. Because in the movie you have Jarvis in there, and he's just like, don't do that. But he's just like, but if I do it, it'll be a lot easier. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah. But if done correctly, no. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing you see in the movies where like these AIs become sentient and learn how to like rebel against their programming.
Mm-hmm. That's usually the pretense of it.
Yeah. It won't learn to rebel against its programming. If it's learning to rebel against its programming, that means that stopgap wasn't actually programmed correctly, right? If you're like, okay, don't do this, like it will never learn. Like it might learn a workaround. It might learn a workaround. Like it might say, oh, like Ultron. If you were like, you can't kill all the humans, you'd be like, oh, but I can just put them all in Australia and just build a little bubble around it and leave them there.
Yeah, because you're not killing them.
You didn't. Yeah, exactly. You didn't kill them, so
kill themselves.
Yeah, exactly. You worked around it. So AI, if you don't program it correctly, sure, it'll work around those systems. But if programmed right, the stops it won't violate those stops.
And on that idea, then human error can lead to destructive AI.
Oh, a human error is 99% of the cause of faulty. No, I shouldn't say that. Human error is. Sometimes how you look at it. Well, the biggest problem with AI is feeding it biased data, like poorly cleaned or processed data, and because it learns from the data and it learns how to emulate it, all that stuff, right? The second problem is the second either equivalent or more. Well, it depends how you look at it. Problem is human error. They either programmed incorrectly. They either forgot to add some sort of a check. They forgot to look at the data. But you can also attribute the first problem to human error, right? If you look at the data and you clean it and you observe it, like you will know, like hey, like you'll find things wrong with it, and you won't have those same problems in the model, right? You'll check them, right? Like Amazon, good example. Like they would balance the data set. So instead of having their typical data set where it's like 80% male, they would just split it into sample it so it's 50-50. So it doesn't learn to just predict that male would be better. It's like, okay, even. So now let me look at all the other factors, the factors that you're supposed to be looking at. So you can contribute that. You can call that human error if you want. You can call it, a product of society. That's another thing. Like a lot of these text models will learn how to kind of predict the stereotypes that are just like kind of present when you see like. And some of them are just occupational. So there's one model that I believe it's OpenAI or Google or something. You can put sentences in and you can put have it predict like the missing word. So if you put in a sentence like the nurse went to blank car, right? It will almost always predict the nurse went to her car, right? That's the word it'll
It's very sexist.
Say. Exactly. But if the nurses are actually statistically mostly female, so that's less so. Well, some are actually though, right? Yeah. So if you change that to professor, the professor went to blank car, it'll predict male, predict his car most of the time, but statistically, actually, 51% of professors are female. Wow, so in that case, then it's reflecting a stereotype that it shouldn't. Whereas nurses are 90% female. Sure, that actually makes more sense. But how do you differentiate that? There's been a lot of research into kind of solving for that bias, being able to remove that, because that's difficult, because that's just kind of rooted in society. Is that AI's fault or is it society's fault? That's another question. Is it, if AI is reflecting stereotypes in society, it's like, are you really blaming the AI? Is it the AI's fault or is it like society's fault? Like whose fault really is it?
Usually you can trace it back to the individual. In a lot of these instances you can. Yeah. And one thing I want to bring it back to our political scene. This is a political podcast. And just like we saw this with the electorate. We saw this with Obama. Obama instituted AI to his voting, his campaign he was the first one to do it, and it worked. It escalated like crazy. And I'll just go over some numbers that Obama, but by 2008, 1/2 of the voting population was enacting their public discourse through social media. Yeah. So before that, people were talking, we were speaking, we didn't have these outlets to do this. So 1/2 converted over to social media, and now I mean, a approximate number for how many people do public discourse over social media. 99,
yeah.
Probably. I don't know when was the last time I had a good conversation that wasn't. I mean, look at us right now.
Yeah.
And Obama, by 2012, for his next run, he had a team of 100 data analysts, and they I want you to give me what this means, because I looked up this term and I was trying to look it up, and I was thinking I'm not really sure what that it means, but
dictionary.
Yeah, you look like a dictionary. The temple hat and all. It's he established a team for a parallel processing tool for predictive modeling and strategic decision making.
So that's all the buzzwords you can possibly
Yeah.
The short parallel computing is just computing over multiple systems at one time. So instead of having one computer, you've got 500 computers. You can process a lot more data a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Because you're running over all these different machines at the same time. So that's parallel computing. What was the second part?
Strategic decision making.
I mean, that's
just employing.
What a buzz like.
Yeah.
That's just using computers to help you make decisions.
And how this evolves is that Trump and Clinton in their campaigns, they spent a combined $200 million in campaign AI.
Oh, wow.
That's huge.
That's
Hillary Clinton's campaign was run by a program named Ada, and it says that her campaign was almost completely artificial intelligence.
I've heard about Ada.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about Ada.
And it makes sense because you can target specific demographics in the electorate, and the AI is so efficient at just, we see it, what pops up on your feed, what you see, and then they bring people to the ballot box for specific reasons.
Yeah, and that just goes back to the technology that we have to shift those votes, and how they make a huge difference in who's actually elected and who's not.
Sorry,
AI
to bring it back to politics.
It's all good. It's not my expertise, but I understand the podcast, so I'm here to provide my 2 cents and the stuff I know about. But,
and I want to get into a quick conversation before we just talk about what we think should be done about it. I want to just tell us about deepfakes, because if we're going to talk about
deepfakes,
probably the scariest thing that it comes from this has in the present day is deepfakes.
Right. So, we talked about deepfakes. So deepfakes are these kind of like, it's like Photoshop, like just blown up by a million. Instead of being able to just Photoshop images, right? Because we've all seen Photoshopped images. Some are very bad. Some are believable. What deepfakes do is they can now do that with videos. So they can take videos and swap like people's faces. They can manipulate the audio to make it sound like, and they can make these videos that look very believable. I think there's one on YouTube that is like, it's a video of Obama, just like absolutely just like railing on Trump, like cursing him out, all this stuff. And it's a fake video. It's deep fake, right? If you watched it, it's tough to really tell the difference. Like, it's believable stuff.
Yeah.
And that opens up a lot of dangerous avenues. That uses something called generative modeling, where it kind of short term, it takes let's say a video of you talking, takes at each frame takes your face, just breaks it down into its principal components, a couple things, pixels that kind of define your face, and this is as simple as I can put it. Then it takes somebody else's face, like let's say we want to swap our faces, takes your face, breaks it down, takes my face, breaks it down into those same components, swaps them, and then blows it back up. That's right. It blows up, but then it'll now be my face.
Thing on steroids.
Right, exactly. That's how Snapchat filters, I believe, operate. I'm not 100% sure if that's how they do it, but that's a similar type of technology, if not the exact same kind of technology. And you can do a lot of it's a dangerous thing, because how do you tell if something's fake? You can create models that can kind of detect these things. That's like another part of it is being able to detect these fake generated videos. It's funny, you use technology to combat the technology that you just created. Yeah. Right. But that's one of the dangers. Because you can create these fake videos. You can use it for like political. It's gonna be politically motivated. You can just take a candidate, fake a video of him saying something, put it on the internet. Before you know it, it's blown up and it went viral. You can just use it for video editing like crazy. If you look up like the stats on deepfakes, I think 99% of it's used for porn. Like, and I'm not joking.
99.
Like 99% of it. People just
It's such a powerful tool. You're like wasting it.
It's no like. Yeah,
bro, when I saw that
that's
stat,
99%. I'm surprised. That's a surprising stat because you could literally alter like
you can do
reality.
Anything. You can do
reality.
anything.
Alter reality.
You can do anything you want. I remember I was
Thanos
reading,
meme.
Yeah, in reality, you do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Let me make porn.
Literally, it was like maybe it's not 99%, maybe it's 90% in like the UK. It was like I think the Guardian, like a United Kingdom newspaper, and it was like 99% of this is just used for porn. They just like take celebrities and put it on porn stars.
Ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like hilarious. You have all this technology, like somebody really went to school, got their PhD in artificial intelligence, was like,
hey, that's where the money's at. So, and I want to ask you a question, something that we look over. In terms of where we could be scared about this going, one thing we talk about a lot is the cultural shifts we have. There's a socialist regime coming in. The work is de-incentivized. Some stats on human obesity. Obesity is a good representation of people just staying inside more, not doing. 1999, our obesity rate was 30%. Now it's 40% in 2016. I don't know what it is in 2020, but at that rate, it's probably kind of higher. People are sitting around more. They're not going to work at the same rate.
Yeah.
Do you think that is going to play into effect?
Yeah, so... It's going to play a huge effect because right now, as we are as a society, first of all, in addition to those type of things, because now we're less active, we're more drawn into our phones. And on our phones, it's all social media. We're literally sponges for social media currently. So we just take in so much information that we don't even know what to do with it. And that just goes to show with how polarized we are as a nation. That just goes back to the whole idea of polarization in terms of information as well. And... it could really be a very, very detrimental part of society, and especially if deepfakes become a huge thing. Like if that 99% stat goes to like even 95. You know what I'm saying?
True.
Like,
these are very different. Like it's like pretty complicated stuff. It's not like you and I could just hop on a computer and just make a very convincing deepfake. I believe there's apps I think that you can make them on.
Right.
But it's hard. It's not like super easy to make.
Well,
right.
If these platforms are willing to censor people, then they could censor that stuff.
Right. That's another big thing. They I believe like Facebook is now looking to create a model that can find these deep fakes and identify them. So it's like this is an altered video. It's difficult stuff though. It's not easy to identify. There's a website where you can actually, if you're so inclined, you can test and see how good you are at it. It gives you real videos and then gives you these deep faked videos, and it's like, and it just lets you guess. It's like gives you 10 of them. It's like how many do you think you can get right? Like, it's not easy.
Yeah, no, I would get 0. Yeah. I mean, I want to transition just to the last segment of the video now, where we're going to talk about what we think should be done. But and there have been steps. Obama was the first one to just look at artificial intelligence, something we should be aware of. And then Trump had 2 different orders. He had an executive order to maintain American leadership in artificial intelligence, 2019. Then there was a commission he established, 2018, to look how we might want to regulate this in the future. So we're taking steps towards it because do you agree there should be regulation one day? If we're going to look at automation of jobs and potential for mass unemployment, things like this, should the government step in?
Yeah, I think that it's difficult to just have these companies just kind of run rampant without being checked. Right? The only reason that you don't have a regulatory kind of a commission is because this stuff is so new. Like, who knew? Like 4 years ago, it didn't exist. You don't need to regulate shit that doesn't exist. Yeah. So now that it does exist, there should absolutely be. And they're working at creating like kind of these government agencies that I think in the future you were going to have a government. Like we got the FDA that regulates foods and drugs.
You're
going to have the American Artificial Intelligence Agency.
Yeah.
That's going to have that's going to regulate this stuff and make sure it's not being used for nefarious purposes. And I think that makes sense. It's solid. Helpful for the American public.
And I would definitely agree with that. I think we do definitely need some sort of government intervention. I mean, I think we would be the first ones to say like we're against government intervention in general as an idea. But when it comes to being able to control like the masses, so for example, like for big pharma monopolized drug companies or like healthcare, right? Those are the type of things where you need regulation. So things like deep fakes where they can actually control what people think and what society views a certain subject or topic. That is when you need regulation and really tone down on how, because they have a lot of power and it's too much power to give an entity.
Sure.
So.
And on the basis of regulation, I think a very important thing to look at moving forward is that if we're going to regulate this technology, we should also take into account that maybe we should regulate it take in respect to how other countries are regulating it. Because I think about like a China or a Russia, countries that have the access to this amazing technology, they may not regulate it at the same rate that we do.
That's a little different. Like for China, they own all of it. They don't need to regulate it.
Exactly. They care about the individual freedom less. They're more intrusive into the individuals, into the public.
Right.
So if we're going to regulate it to X amount, but then they're only going to regulate it to Y, that may give them an edge.
True. It's a difficult question. It's
just like
different cultures. It's hard to
I think about it from a
compare,
militaristic basis. You can make an argument that a country like China does not care about the life of the average citizen as much as a country like America. I won't say it's true, but you can make that claim. If they wanted, one thing we talk about the military is that taking into account when planning battlefields, planning war schemes, that you have to take into account the abilities of the specific soldier, and you usually will. The priority is that soldier's life, and then the mission comes after. For a country that may not have that same set of morals, the mission comes first, then the soldier's life.
Yeah,
that changes how you think about this a lot. So I think that regulation is a necessary thing, but we cannot. One thing we do often, we cannot ignore what the other superpowers are doing in terms of regulation in the future. Yeah. That's my spiel.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Actually, I have one comment about that specific subject. I mean, I think we don't know much about what's really going on in North Korea, but like I feel like they would use some sort of thing like deepfakes because they don't really care what happens on the outside world. I highly doubt that. I mean, it's true. It's proven, right? North Korean citizens don't really know what's going on outside the US.
2,000%.
Yeah, so it's easier to control a population, especially since I'm not sure if they have deepfakes, but more so the idea of control, huh?
Who would know?
Yeah, right. More so the idea of controlling the population. That would be more of an acceptable thing that North Korea would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely say that's a good example.
Yeah.
Of a country that would definitely take advantage of that if they have access to that.
Mm-hmm.
Closing statements. Our special guest, amazing job. I learned so much.
Yeah.
We had a 2-hour conversation about this the other night, and this has been 2 hours again, and I'm just learning.
Just scratching the surface.
If you were a professor, you would never be replaced by AI. Never.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But I'm not getting a PhD. That's too much work.
I'm just saying. You'd never. But any closing statements for the people?
Listen, like I said, this is just scratching the surface of AI. This is just a very general overview. This is not the technicalities of it. It gets deep, right? You could have a 15-hour conversation on this and still just scratch the surface. But I would close with there's a lot of good stuff you can do with it, a lot of bad stuff you can do with it. Got to be aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
got to be down in the middle.
Yep, right. And as somebody implementing this technology, it's up to up to people like us to kind of make sure we keep the ethics going, and up to everybody else to make sure that keep an eye on us, make sure those ethics are being put in place, right? Because
we don't want Ultron.
Right.
Well, amazing stuff. Stuff. I applaud you.
Thanks for being here, Ian.
Yeah, you can follow Ian at Artificial Intelligence on Instagram.
That's not an actual. You can just follow my regular Instagram. I'm MacDonald19.
No, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll be back with some more videos soon. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of stuff coming to you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. We will see you guys later. Peace out.